Welcome, everybody, to the Rye Town Council meeting of February 21st, 2017. Please rise. And Marcia Rogel, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make our every decision fair-minded and in the best interest for all its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilperson Lindsey Jackson, Councilperson Thomas Nardi,
Here.
Councilperson Anthony Baxter,
Here.
Councilperson William Villanova,
Here?
and Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Present. Our first item tonight is a presentation by the Assessment Task Force. I believe Dan is going to make that presentation. And once again, on behalf of the entire council, we thank you and all the members for the hard work and the excellent work that you've put into the task assigned.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. It's actually quite a pleasure working with this group, and I know everybody on the assessment task force enjoys working with each other. It's an unusual group of people in that everybody is committed and knows what they're doing and actually does stuff. You know, you join these clubs and everybody shows up for the yearbook picture, but nobody does anything in between. Well, that's not this task force at all. In fact, this evening, Marcia Rogel is here as well. So what we did since the last time we met and made recommendations to the council was we let the holidays go by and we decided to reconvene to start to implement or at least get things situated to implement our recommendations. The goal is to get the assessment office and the assessment role ready for a revaluation when that time comes. Whether it's 2018 or 2019, at some point there will be a need for another revaluation. One hasn't been done for some time. And what happens if you don't do a revaluation every so often, what can happen, I should say, it doesn't necessarily happen, but it can happen, is that if the state doesn't certify your role at 100%, and it drops down below 100%, even if it's 98 or 96%, you'd think, well, that's still pretty good. It's better than it was when we started, which was 2%. But what happens by law is that those numbers are then frozen. So they can't be revised annually by the assessor the way they are now. And that's when the inequities immediately start to creep in. So whether or not the council goes forward with the revaluation, the task force feels it's important to get the pieces in place to be ready to do it, because it's not a one-year kind of a project. One of the things that's coming up, I had submitted a resolution that has the recommendations in it as well as a timetable in it. You'll see down below on the first page that it says collect new street level photography. In terms of timing, it says summer of 2017, and that's kind of misleading because the process will be finished in summer of 2017, but the field work has to be done before there are leaves on the trees. So you see, we're kind of running into a time pressure already. If we don't get it done this spring before the leaves come out, you'll push it into next year. If you push it into next year, you push the revaluation into another year. So there are things that need to be done in this timetable if we're going to stick to it, which brought us to preparing this draft resolution where we're suggesting a borrowing to take care of the appropriations for this work, whether or not the board decides in its wisdom that it wants to borrow or ban to do this or find an appropriation from appropriate budget transfers. Obviously it's up to the board. But what we're recommending is that something be put in place immediately for that line item. And also, if you'll turn to the next page, we talk about an informational piece to send to homeowners that has to go out by April 1st. And then, a public relations effort, we don't know what that cost is going to be, but we do have a pretty good idea what the informational mailer will cost, as well as the street level photography. Now, in conversation with the assessor, she has been interviewing a number of different companies, and is trying to find the best proposal or proposals to submit to the board for this work. But for purposes of tonight's meeting and to bring everybody up to speed.
Which work? You're talking about the street level photography?
Yes, I'm
Or
sorry.
the mailer, or both?
No, the mailer is going to be something that the task force is going to put together. The cost for that is really mailing and production.
Right.
That's probably something we're going to write with the assessor's help. But the street level photography, we do have to retain a vendor. If you look at the first item, where it says retain services of Tyler Technologies to analyze current vision appraisal data, that's already been done, and the assessor found room in her budget from last year to get that done. So that's kind of taken care of. Am I correct, Denise?
It depends on the timing of it. She's just about finished with it, so I think it's gonna have to come out of this year.
Okay.
But I think that's something that could be absorbed.
The data mailer, which is another important piece to prepare for revaluation, that's not weather dependent, so we put in summer of 2017 for that. Property sketch validation, again, is not weather related, but the street level photography is. So that's my report. I don't know if I left anything, Marcia? I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to answer them best I can.
Now, with regards to the street level photography, there was one vendor, am I correct? And then you identified 2 other potential vendors, is that correct, Denise? Thank you, Dan.
That is true, and the vendor that I was focusing on had the best price, and the county had used them in 2010. But in exploring this late last week a little further, I found 2 other vendors, highly competitive, and I need to really take a look at that, and that's why I tabled the presentation on the street level photography for this evening until next month.
Okay, so
I just want to make the best decision
is
with
there
the 5
is there a
vendors.
way that we had 28,300 in as that I guess placeholder. What are we looking at as far as the savings going to a different vendor?
Actually, they're all at about 30,000. So this one may have a savings, but there's also a $1,500 a year software fee. So I have to chart it all out and see.
Well, when do we have, how long does it take to do?
To do, it'll take them probably 3 weeks, and then maybe another 3 weeks to deliver the product.
I'm concerned with what Dan said, that we have to do it when the trees still don't have leaves. So I am concerned that we get it done as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
And I'm not willing to wait another month to at least approve this if we need to do this. Because once we approve it, you're going to go out, you're going to look for your vendors, and maybe in 2 weeks you'll know who the vendor is that you're going to recommend, and then we have to wait until the March 21st meeting, and which, by the way, we may be changing.
Right, just 23rd.
Just making a note.
What is the?
Let me finish.
I'm sorry, Gary.
So what I would like to do, since this is the seemingly most urgent item, am I correct? This is the one we have to do now. I would like to have a resolution, we can do it orally, to authorize you to, will this be the matter of an RFP, or will this be consulting services where you're going to get 3 bids?
I would suspect it's going to be in consulting services where I get the various bids.
All right, so I would like to authorize you to start the process of recommending to us the, the bidder. And what I'd like as a resolution is a resolution for the council to approve up to $30,000 to fund this street-level photography.
Right, so
Council members?
Right, so I would support that, and what it does, it gives Denise the opportunity to pull the trigger on this within the next week or 2 weeks.
Okay.
It appears that you already have values of these three bids, and without finding the other two, we were satisfied with the original bidder.
Okay.
So I feel very comfortable going forward, and really, in the scheme of things, the potential benefit or maybe the potential expense could be an additional, either the expense of $1,500 a year, or not pay $1,500 a year. And what is the lifespan of the data? Is it approximately 10 years?
Generally, it's 6 years.
So right.
Yeah, the International Association of Assessing Officers recommends doing this every 6 years. Last time we did it was 2009.
So we're really, I mean, we're looking at it in the scope of everything. You're looking at approximately $9,000, which is de minimis in the scheme of all of this.
So in
I
the-
feel comfortable going forward with the supervisor's recommendation.
And in the end, I'll have 5 bids, one of which I felt really the need to go back and check out who Mitch had used in '09. That's Geospan. So I said, I've got to throw them in the mix because, you guys are maybe familiar with them and we need to know what they would be charging, what they could offer. So I spoke to them on, I think it was Thursday, found another company, spoke to them late Friday, and they're all very competitive, and I just really want to get the best product.
Okay, so Gary, you made, so moved.
So could I just ask, is this going to come out of the budget, or is this part of the borrowing plan that we're going to vote on later?
Whether or not it's a borrowing plan will depend on the financial advisor. And I already discussed with Dave where we're going with that, because we will be embarking on either a series of bans and at the end of the year, a bond to take into account
Okay.
Crawford Park. And so we're going to be sitting down with Dave, with the accountants and the financial advisor to determine what we should borrow for, how much it should be, the length of the borrowing, et cetera, for each of these items. That we can't discuss, we can't decide tonight. What we can and should do is just make a determination that we are going to authorize the assessor to get estimates and proposals from various consultants to do this work, and to authorize me to enter into a contract with such consultants. Jeffrey?
Yes.
My-
Absolutely.
My question is that, are you gonna, this is not including the 8,500 you're gonna have to do for mailers too, though? You're gonna
No.
have
That's
to
a
do mailers.
separate
No.
That's separate.
initiative,
No.
yeah.
Okay,
All of these listed in the resolution are separate and to be discussed in the future.
okay.
But the one thing that's really time sensitive is getting the
The
photography done.
photography. Okay.
So that we need to do. Jeffrey, do you want to word the resolution? Or is what I said good enough?
That's fair, the record will be clear on that. Hope we'll clarify that in a minute.
Okay. All right.
So Billy made the motion, I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to mention that if you're going to do this data mailer in April, you might want to have made that decision before March 23rd, because the group has to have time to prepare it.
Well, you know what, if we're going to discuss that now, then I would suggest let's move to Resolution A, discuss Resolution A, and then move on. Is that
Well, I
okay?
think we just did Resolution A.
No, we didn't.
We broke out.
We broke that out. We're not
Right.
going to do the resolution because it talks about bonding, et cetera, and that's, and I actually spoke with Mr. Tartaglia early today and advised him that that's a matter for our financial advisors to help us determine how much we'll be borrowing and how much we will be taking out of our fund balance.
We
in order
taking
to
this
do
off the agenda then tonight?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Very good. Okay.
So that part of it is done. Anything else? Dan, Marcia, anything? Yeah,
Thank you all very much for your work.
yeah.
Much appreciated.
And at the next meeting, we'll discuss the others. In the meantime, you're going to be meeting to put the data mailer together. And it, right,
Good.
right. So we'll have something more firm for the March meeting so that we can then put on the agenda a resolution that will take care of that. And in the meanwhile, as we get further along, we'll be talking with the financial advisor and with Davy to determine how we're going to fund all of this. And I just, my feeling, by the way, I don't know about, I haven't discussed it with the other members of the council. I really think we should shoot towards a new reval for 2018 to get going. Not 19, but 18. Should have been done last year, right? 6 years, right? 2009, 2015. So now we'll get it done. Tell me if I'm wrong. All right. The next resolution, and Dan, I think you're on this as well, is the authorization to issue a credit to the Grace Church Street Realty Corp.
We got the minutes, Gary, and public comment?
That's right, we just jumped down. I skipped that, didn't I? I apologize, everybody. I apologize. I'm looking at the resolutions. Because Billy mentioned about Resolution A. Okay. That was a presentation. Approval of minutes. Has everybody read the minutes of January 17th? And if so, if there are no changes, comments, et cetera, may I have a motion and a second for that?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Comments from the public, and I believe we do have somebody who wants to make a comment. Please state your name and your affiliation.
My name's Robert Sachs. I live on 74 Munson Street. And I'm here to present some information regarding possibly having outdoor fitness equipment installed at Crawford Park. I do have that information, which I will give to you and go over and answer any questions. But I do want to start with a little bit of the why. About 5 years ago, my blood sugar started going up, started going through that trend of, pre-diabetic, diabetic, and I hit that, and it was a very not good moment. And I said to my doctor, who knew I didn't want to take medicine, didn't want to do anything, what can I do? And he told me to walk. And he said, you don't have to break a sweat, just walk a half hour. So I walked a half hour, went back, numbers started plummeting. I went out of diabetic range, went out of pre-diabetic, and in fact, my sugars went below 5 years ago, off medication. My wife saw that success, started joining me on the walks, and she came off her blood pressure medication. Last summer, I actually, through my son in baseball, started to get to know more people in Portchester, one of them being Mr. Villanova, and he started to join us on our walks, and it was the start of what turned into a walking crew. The reason I bring this up is that walking crew, one of our favorite routes was to walk up Betsy Brown, go through the walking trail at Crawford Park, and then come back around. So walking, good. So the next step, why the fitness equipment? Because walking's aerobic exercise, but the other part of exercise is creating muscle tone, building muscle, stretching, things like that that are really important. And the opportunity right now that I see for fitness equipment to go into Crawford Park is phenomenal because we have this new playground coming in too. To be able as a parent to go to the park, take my kids to the park, and watch them enjoy the playground, but me actually get physically fit in the process is phenomenal. So before I get to the what, I just want to give you this one last tidbit here. This morning when I was putting these together, my daughter looked at me, she's 10 years old, and she said, what is that? What is all that stuff? And I showed her a picture of the equipment, and she goes, oh, that's cool, it's workout equipment. She loves getting me to come down to the basement to work out. She kills me. She's brutal. But she said that, and I said, and she said, I showed her, I said, I'm going to present tonight, and hopefully, we'll see this at Crawford Park. And she has no idea about the playground, but just from seeing that and me saying that, she said to me, oh, cool. That probably means we're going to be spending more time there. And I said, there you go. That's like a perfect segue into this, because not only is it,
I'll pass them
I
down.
have 4 of them.
Okay.
Not only is it great, obviously, for just the individual exercise, but it's a draw. The first, if you open the folder, try to go in order, so I'll do this really quick. I know, time limited, but I just highlighted a few kind of key points. I took this off of the internet when I was doing my research, and some of these I thought were just great. Just to read just 1 or 2. Obviously, no fees. It's not like you have to have a membership to a gym to get out and enjoy getting a good workout. There's one further down. If you want to attract more people to your parks, give them more reasons to go there. That's exactly what happened with my daughter this morning in that discussion. And obviously, the overall health. And you can browse that. The next form I have in the folder is the actual catalog that's printed off the internet. Oh, wait a second, I gave my notes to some, I gave the wrong folder. Coming up, the purple one. Thank you, the first one there. Cheater.
I knew what you were going to say before you
Yeah,
said it.
that's right. Telepathic. So on the form, on the catalog actually, if you turn to page, and you could look at the front, couple of pages, but if you turn to page 6 and 7, the proposal that I'm bringing to you is for clusters. It's 4 clusters of equipment. Instead, there's 2 ways to do it. You can have a trail that has like 18 different stations, but I think Crawford Park would benefit more from clusters, which is they take those and combine them, okay? So page 6 shows you how, page 7 is the full track, and then page 6 shows you the signs of how they combine them. Now, if you turn the page to page 8 and 9, those are the clusters. 8 is one type of equipment, and 9 is another type of equipment, but those are the basic clusters that you would see. And if you're looking at this, there's 3, the important part about, when we get into the quotes, is there's 3 types of material used. One is straight Douglas fir wood, which is strong, durable, will last over 20 years, but does require more maintenance. The second type, and that's what you're looking at page 9, if you look at page 9, that's a Douglas fir. The second type is 100% recycled materials, which is a little bit more durable, and has the look of wood, if you want it. You could also get other colors. And the last type is on page 8, which is the pipeline, which is 1/4-inch steel, which is the most durable out of the 3. You can also, if you turn to page 10, you can see the pipeline in a green and beige color, which I think would be much more attractive in a park setting than that blue that you see on page 8. And then obviously the rest of it shows some of the individual stations. But if I could just ask you, because it's in the quotes, to look at page 7 one more time, you'll see up at the very top some of the signs that are there. And one of the quotes I asked them to include, because the steel pipe signs are less expensive. The ones that look more like wood are an up pricing. So I asked them to include a quote with those included. So if you turn then to the next packet that's, and I didn't staple it so you could compare individually, But if you look at Columbia Cascade Company, these are the quotes that I got from this particular company. Page 1 would be the recycled, and it comes in at 16,000, approximately 16,000. That's recycled with the steel tubing signs. Then page 2 would be the wood, which is about 15,000, and then recycled with the page 3 is recycled with the upscale sign, well, up-price sign. And 4 is the pipeline, the steel, at 14,000. If you then turn that, or once you're done with that, and again, I'm just going through it, and you can ask questions, and I'll answer best as I can. I went to, and I spoke with Al Corsetti, who I believe is doing the installation of the playground. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's doing that. And I spoke to him, and he included a quote for $12,800 to install it. And interestingly, and you know, the only thing about that quote is if you turn to the next page where it has my name on top, Robert, this is an email he sent. The second paragraph, he quoted the $12,008 for the 4 groups, but that doesn't include, because he doesn't know where they're going to be placed, it doesn't include any of the land issues, you know, leveling the land, or if you choose to put, for example, like railroad tie tracks around a station, or put, you know, like wood chips or rubber chips or whatever it might be in there. So he would have to, once he knows exactly where we want to place it, then add that to it. And by the way, if you look at the very top of that email, I was very happy when he wrote that. I had looked at about 10 companies that furnish this type of equipment, and as it says here, he would recommend them, highly recommend Columbia Cascade. He's worked with that before. He said the price is very reasonable, and he does suggest using them. He also mentioned in phone conversation that the pipeline, he's installed the pipeline, I believe, in the city, and it seems that a lot of people are going with that for durability reasons. So that, and then last, I included a little printout of Crawford Park. Google Earth is awesome. And I just, for argument's sake, as far as kind of where the clusters would be, I kind of put like A near that entrance. That's the entrance that we would walk up from Betsy Brown into through there. So like one there. I put B next to the playground. I don't know if the playground is moving or not, but I did that just to kind of position it near the playground so parents could work out there. And then C and D down at the bottom. I would keep them, I kept it higher. I wouldn't put it too close to the road on the bottom part there, but that's just, again, just for starting conversation. Again, I thank you for your consideration. I think this would really kind of reminds me of Field of Dreams, build it and they will come kind of idea. I think, I've seen I know a ton of parents who go there. I know a ton of parents who we've talked to have said, oh, here we go to the park, because they're just going to sit there and be on their phone, while their kids are playing.
They're going to want to play in our new playground, by the way.
Well, that might be true, too. So, maybe it's like an adult playground. But it is, again, I did a lot of research into the materials, and again, I can answer some of the questions, I think, and, if you have any.
All right.
Try my best.
Questions, board members? Anybody?
Just, one second. Well, Rob, obviously I knew that you were coming, and I knew that this was coming. I think it's a great idea. It's the reason why I asked you to come. I want you, and if it's okay with the board, I would love to have Rob speak with our grant writer to see what we could do to incorporate this concept into the park. I think this is a perfect fit where we can have adults there at the park with the kids, having a healthy community. We talk about what we could do as a community to reduce our carbon footprint and be a better community. I think this is a strong step in the right direction. And one thing that we probably miss out a lot with not you're missing the adults and the children, but in between, the high school age kids, You know, I think that having this opportunity there to go and work out and enjoy the park, something for them as well would be excellent. So I can't, you know, I can't say enough good about this. And Rob's exactly right. You know, he got me off my butt this past summer, and we all started walking, and it was a great thing. And that group of 2 to 3, and I think when at 7, and we have everybody, you know, walking in this group. You know, moms, dads, police officers, you know, funeral directors, musicians, teachers. You know, they were all there, and it was. Forrest Gump, we did it all, so.
But I think, and that's what I think it would be phenomenal, is when we go to that park, to be able to get in that extra, you know, Bill took us to the fire station to try and get a quick workout. You know, we might have a set of barbells in the basement, you know, those types of things. But getting out to the park, getting out with the family, getting out with friends, and getting those types of workouts. And again, I just think it would be amazing. I've seen parks, in fact, that's what happened. I mentioned to Bill on our walk, how cool would this be? There was a park in Mount Kisco I used to go to that used to have this workout equipment. Down here, what I would do is I'd try and get over to King Street Elementary and get on the playground there and do some pull-ups and chin-ups on the playground, or run over to the high school and maybe the football team left out some equipment and I could, you know, do some of that. But to have a formal and especially at such a beautiful park, to be able to put that there, I think would be tremendous.
Billy mentioned the grant writer. We're working on a grant. Hopefully, we're going to improve the trail in the park. And one of the things, I know that one of the considerations that you mentioned was grouping them. The other way is to put them along the trail. I know that they have equipment like this along the North County Trailway. You know, the bike path, and it's a bike and walking path, and they have equipment set up, very simple, this kind of thing, where you can stop your walk and do some pull-ups or whatever. So, you know, this is something to look into, and I would certainly bring the Friends of Crawford Park into it, because one of the things that we are trying to do is to get an overall plan for the park. And right now, a lot of our efforts are in the work that we're doing for handicap accessibility on the mansion, the pavilion, the playground, the sensory garden, et cetera. But we have the entire remainder of the park, the land, to consider how we want to use that in the future. The ball field, for example, we're looking into possible grants to improve that, and other things. So that's all to be discussed and spoken about with all of the stakeholders.
I want to thank you for all the research you did. You obviously put some time and effort into this. This is something that came up in our discussions with the contractors for the playground,
Right.
that this would be a natural evolution of
Absolutely.
the playground itself. So it is something that the council has discussed, and I think getting the grant writer involved and the friends involved makes perfect sense. And I think it makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. It helps us to activate the park much more, which is something we've talked about doing for a long time. So I thank you for bringing it up, and it's something that's certainly been on our table and will continue to be.
My question is, do you know how much square footage these pieces of equipment use? The reason why I ask is this way, if we can find the areas that are flatter, it would be less expensive to do.
I believe, if you look at page 8, the clearance, you see where it says clearance space? I mean, it says on both, but just using pipeline as an example. The clearance space, 24 by 26,
Okay.
so it lists those.
It
for
lists the
each
clearance,
cluster,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
I don't think they're massive.
No,
areas.
if that wasn't, my concern is trying to find a nice level area, because if you have something that you've got to grade and you've got to bring up the grade, I'm worried about people, they're going to go, but I'm worried about people tripping. I want to try to keep it as flat as possible, like we're doing with the playground.
By the way, I made sure at this company that all of the clusters, as you can see even on the sheet there, are handicap accessible too.
Okay.
I think this is great. Is it, we have permission from the board. I'd like to continue to keep Mr. Sachs engaged to speak with the grant writer and to speak with and to speak with the Friends of Corford Park in the future?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
absolutely.
Thank you. And
Sure.
you can get me that information.
I'll get it to you, yeah, no
Great.
problem.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
Thank you for
presentation.
your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And now, any more comments from the public? Seeing none. Now, Dan, Grace Church Street.
Good evening again, Mr. Supervisor. This is a part of last year's in rem foreclosures. The town has been served with a motion in bankruptcy because monies that were authorized by the bankruptcy court in connection with one of these properties, or one of the entities, I should say, that owns one of these properties, which is Grace Church Realty Corp., which owns 40 Grace Church Street, is in bankruptcy. And the bankruptcy court authorized, I don't know why, but it did authorize the payment of $20.31 toward the taxes owed by this property. Now, this property owes a lot more than that, which is why the bankruptcy order really didn't make a lot of sense to me when the receiver pointed it out to me. But we're going to have to respond to the motion, because what happened, unfortunately, is there were two properties very close to each other, and we've submitted a memo trying to explain it as best we can. It's a little confusing. There's 70 Grace Church Street and there's 40 Grace Church Street. They both owed back taxes. They were both part of the in rem tax foreclosures. What happened was 70 Grace Church Street was actually taken in rem by the town. And then it was bought back by the property owner for $230,000 and then deeded from the town back to the property owner. When that occurs, whatever taxes were owed are supposed to be wiped out, excuse me, but because it was the same property owner, there was some confusion, and because this $25,000 check came in, also said Grace Church Street on it, almost the same day when this transfer took place, it got applied to the wrong property. So a couple of things need to happen accounting-wise. The taxes that 70 Grace Church Street has been carrying, the back taxes need to get wiped out. There needs to be an adjustment back to the day they took title, which is this whole, this whole idea of putting them back on the books as of that date. That's a simple matter. The reason we brought this to the town board and the reason we need a resolution is because we need to put something in our motion to indicate that the board has authorized taking this $25,000 away from the 70 Grace Church Street and crediting it to 40 Grace Church Street. Does that make sense? So it's a little confusing, but if everybody follows that.
So 70's overpaid by 20,000, you're gonna put it to 40.
That's correct.
Yep.
That's a simple, okay.
Yeah, it's just a simple misapplication. And the the resolve clause is that the town board authorizes a tax receiver to issue a credit in the amount of $25,000 plus to Grace Church Realty Corp.
40,
For 40.
from 70 to 40, right. And how much is owed on 40 now?
Yes. We have there's an attached notice of claim that was filed, I believe, by Paul Noto. At the time, it shows $66,000.
66,590, right.
590,
Yeah, and this was a while ago, so now the outstanding amount is, it's over 100 now.
Okay.
We're not concerned with that at this point. I guess we could make a motion to ask them to pay us the rest of it in bankruptcy court.
Here's the question I have. These monies are going to be applied to which years?
The oldest.
That was from 2 years ago? When was that?
2014.
I believe there's a ledger bill that we attached
Yeah, so, okay.
to the, it's attached to the memo? That shows the 66,000 that
Right.
was part of the notice of claim.
Yes. So we're going to apply it, we're going to apply it to the oldest
I would think.
tax? Because that makes a difference, right, Nick? Mr. Mecca?
If you look at the 214 line, it's the 20,000, what, 3, because there was a check and some cash.
Right. That's why the numbers, now you reminded me, Nick, I'm sorry. Bill, you see where it says cumulative due, it says 27,059.52?
Yes.
They paid this 25,020.31, and when they came in, they paid the difference of that amount in cash.
Okay.
So that's the amount that's going to be applied.
Understood.
So I mean, I think it's fairly clear. The only question that I have going forward is they owe so much more money. So, and you raised it in the beginning of your presentation, is why did the bankruptcy court authorize partial payment? For what purpose?
I haven't a clue.
They have gotten a massive loan, that's why. But the courts only gave us a little portion of that massive loan. Well, I think that, who's representing us in bankruptcy court?
We are.
So I think we need to make a motion of some kind to make clear that we want the rest of the money, or they should give us the deed.
Well, no, there's
Yeah,
there's a debtor in possession, and I think
Right.
there was what's called DIP financing that was done while they were in bankruptcy, which is debtor in possession
Right.
financing. If what Nick is explaining to me, I believe all they could allocate toward taxes was this amount at the time.
right. I think that you should take a look at the bankruptcy filings and see exactly what they did, because we may have some recourse. Debtor in possession financing is the highest order because it enables the debtor to keep the business going without liquidating.
Correct. What business is this, Nick? What business is there?
This is the one that used to be the Playland Tavern. It's a Spanish restaurant now, right across, diagonally across from the firehouse.
Okay,
Where Midland Meat Space Church.
okay.
It's a 6-family house with the restaurant on the bottom. It used to be the Playland Tavern many
Yeah,
years ago.
okay.
Well, we'll get more information on it,
Yeah.
Mr. Supervisor, but this is, the motion's returnable on 28th, so we had to do something quickly here
Understood.
because
Yeah.
we had
Yeah,
violated.
but
this.
I
sense
would
'cause it was just
think that at
misapplied.
some point, you can make the court aware of the fact that we'd really like to get the rest of the money, because other than the debtor in possession financing, we're the next lien. So the question is, I don't know what their assets and what liability show, but they're not liquidating, they're in
Oh.
business.
But I should point out that bankruptcy judges and bankruptcy court is the only thing that can open up back years for purposes of challenging assessments.
Understood.
So, you want to be a little bit careful.
And
I
I'm
haven't
sure you
looked at-
will be.
I haven't looked at the, we don't want to give them an idea that they're going to come back and open back years and challenge the assessments for those prior years. But we will be on top of it, Mr. Supervisor, and get us paid as quickly as we can.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second for Resolution B, please?
So moved. I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Aye.
Yes.
Councilperson Villanova?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. And now we have a series of resolutions. Do you want to handle these all at the same time? Denise, explain to the public and to the council what these homestead, non-homestead-based proportions are.
Okay. Well, this is an exercise we go through every year at this time so that so that everybody can prepare their budgets and the tax rates can be set with the appropriate homestead and non-homestead tax classification. Do you want me to explain a little bit about
Briefly.
what that is? Okay, so essentially, when a community goes through a reval, the playing field is leveled, and yet the tax burden tends to shift toward the residential class. So the municipality has the opportunity to adopt the homestead non-homestead-based proportions. And that is what the town of Rye did in 2004. And ever since then, these proportions get calculated based on a complicated New York State formula. And these are the resolutions that propose what they would be for this year.
All right, and basically, there are a series of resolutions. The numbers are slightly different depending on the municipality or school district, but there's one for the town of Rye, one for the village of Portchester, one for the village of Rye Brook, and one each for the Portchester School District, the Blind Brook School District, and the Rye Neck School District.
That is correct. And there is not one for the village of Mamaroneck because they never adopted the homestead, non-homestead
And-
option.
Right. And you have had discussions with each of these entities, and they are all apprised of it and are in agreement with it, correct?
Basically, yes. And then they approve, once the town approves the figures, then each of those entities will approve the town's recommendation.
Unless there's a problem, I'd like to handle these all in one motion, even though they're separate resolutions. Jeffrey, do we have a problem with that?
You know what, I think for, belt and suspenders purposes.
We should do them individually? Okay.
Usually I just read through them just so it's on the record, if that is appropriate. I mean, I don't read the whole resolution, just the figures and what they're
Denise, then you may go forward with,
applicable to.
So could I
Okay.
just ask one question
Sure,
before she
sure.
starts? So are these numbers set by the state, or is the formula set by the state, and then
The
we-
formula is set by the state.
But then we do that locally?
And then we plug in all the appropriate numbers. It's rather complicated. There are figures that come from last year's roll at this time, and then there are figures that come from this roll. There are figures that come from the assessor's report, which are the equalization increases and decreases. Those are market rate increases or changes. And there are physical changes. So that means any new construction, demolition, whatever the net is of all of that, that gets inputted as well. So,
Do these numbers change significantly year to year?
it depends. I mean, I do have a record of what they have been since 2004. I could email that to
I
you
just,
if
I
you'd
I was
like,
curious.
or-
I
Yeah,
just
so you
didn't
know,
know.
that's always my question. So-
It would just be helpful to know, like, comparison purposes, maybe when we do this again next year, you know, if you could break out the last 3 years or so, you know, what the
Denise,
what
why
the
don't
rate
you
was.
prepare a spreadsheet year by year
would just
for
be
each
helpful to know.
jurisdiction?
Okay,
Right.
I have it. And do you want me to present it at the board meeting next month, or do
No,
you?
just send it to the
Send it
council.
to
You
everybody.
just send it to us.
Yeah,
Okay.
for informational purposes.
I mean,
And also, if you could please just confirm for me that, you know, each year, when we go down this, this path of the homestead, non-homestead, that we are ever shifting the burden, tax burden to the non-homestead properties, right? So we're trying to increase that number and decrease the number, the burden on the
That-
residential?
that is not necessarily a given. The
But
burden
that has
will
been,
change. It
that has been historic, correct?
I'd have to highlight the specific years where that has happened. I mean, last year, well, this year, you're seeing the residential portion picking up more of the burden.
And why is that?
It could be that just there's more activity in the residential component. I had asked the Office of Real Property Services. Okay, do you want to? But they verified the numbers, and I asked them, and it essentially is there's more activity in the.
Yeah, the assessment task force has also been looking at analysis of the homestead, non-homestead rates. One of the one of the analysis indicates that right now there's about a 10-point spread.
Right.
The non-homestead is in about the 4% range, whereas the homestead is in about the 3%. That's a full value range, and that gap has actually been widening. The non-homestead rate has actually been increasing faster than the homestead rate.
Right.
You're talking about the tax rate?
The tax rate.
Tax rate, that's a different
No, but it's
component.
because of the size of those classes.
Right.
So if you look at the size of the non-homestead class, it's flatter than the size of the homestead
For the
class.
people watching, the non-homestead class is the commercial.
It's generally commercial properties. So that gap has been widening. And in fact, I just did an analysis recently. I think I had mentioned this to Hope. I went in and took every school district in Westchester County, and through, just looking at the equalization rates, I equalized everything to 100%, so I can compare school tax rates, apples and apples and apples. If you look at the village of Portchester, for example, homestead tax rate, it's below the median. It's at about $16. The median is about $21 or $22. If you look at the homestead school tax rate in Portchester, it's close to $30. So there is quite a spread there, and there's quite a benefit that's being provided to homeowners in this community because of the maintenance of these two different roles.
Right.
The other end of the spectrum is that it's hurting the commercial properties. My feeling, that's just my own personal feeling, but there's a significant benefit that's being provided to homeowners by maintaining these two rates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also another reason the numbers change sometimes is the exempt roll. If a property goes into a pilot, it moves into the exempt roll. It's no longer part of the non-homestead
Non-homestead,
class.
right.
So that happens too.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all
Good
right.
explanation.
So should I go ahead and read the nuts and bolts of these resolutions?
Read what you would like to read,
Okay.
Madam Assessor.
Resolution C is related to the town.
We're just going to do the resolve? The resolved?
Yeah.
You can just
Whatever
do the
you-
resolved portion if you wish. At the bottom?
Oh, okay. I just want to clarify what it's related to, though. So the homestead proportion is 67.800334. The non-homestead is 32.199666. Resolution D for the Village of Portchester, homestead base proportion is 55.305,982. The non-homestead base proportion is 44.694018. Resolution E for the Village of Rybrook, the homestead base proportion is 72.166008, and the non-homestead proportion is 27.833992. Resolution F
That's a
is
very big difference.
for the Portchester School District, and the homestead base proportion is 54.156148. Non-homestead is 45.843852. Resolution G for the Blind Brook School District is the homestead base proportion is 80.029309. Non-homestead is 19.970691. And lastly, Resolution H for the Rhinex School District. The homestead base proportion is 89.263253. Non-homestead is 10.736747.
Thank you. You really want to do these individually, huh? Okay. We have a motion and a second on Resolution C.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion and a second on Resolution D.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion and a second on Resolution E, which is
So
for
moved.
Brook.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution G for Blind Brook.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the last one, Resolution H for Rhinebeck. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All set?
All set.
Thank you.
Our next item is the construction contract for the Crawford Park Pavilion. This is our first actual construction contract for Crawford Park handicap and non-handicap improvements. It has been awarded to Vinco Builders, and I must say that our architect, Arconics Architecture by Gary Gianfrancisco, did a terrific job, because the amount of this contract is going to be, actually was negotiated down from the bid, and it's under $500,000, which this is for the new handicapped accessible bathrooms, 2 of them, men's and women's, a 3rd one for unisex, and a kitchenette. Any discussion? Tommy? You've been involved in this?
Yep. This is also taking care of the sidewalks and the fans. It's
That's
the
correct.
whole complete thing,
Right?
which is going to be nice. Having the kitchenette in the pavilion, it's going to, this way, if the mansion's not being rented out, they can lock, there's no reason for anybody to go in there. They can lock it. And this way, the pavilion, it takes care of itself. It has the kitchenette, it's got the bathrooms. So there's no reason to have the mansion opened if it's not being rented. It's going to be a nice project. It's going to be really nice when it's done.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second it.
If there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
Councilperson Villanova,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. The next resolution is for our playground, of which we had spoken before. We are, at this point, the actual design has not been completed, but this resolution calls for a maximum price, which we hope to get down a little bit. Again, this has been discussed by the Friends, we've brought in Disabled on the Move, United Cerebral Palsy, and of course the various designers. And this playground, the cost seems a little bit high, but we've expanded the footprint from the original design to make the footprint as large as possible given the space. And this playground will not only be for be handicap accessible, but also be a playground for the typical child, so that we can have the children with disabilities and the children without disabilities playing together. And I think that this is really admirable. And as I say, the list of equipment is not 100% complete. We're looking at it over and over again, but this resolution sets forth a maximum amount that will take into account anything that we could possibly want in it. Any discussion?
No.
May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
Councilperson Villanova,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Next resolution is for tree pruning. And this basically is authorizing us to formulate an RFP. And that's all that it does. And the final resolution is not in here, Jeff. The one that I modified today. Did you send it to Hope? There's a slight change in them. It's nothing consequential, but please put the original one in. I mean, the one that I modified.
What's the change, Gary?
The basic change is in the therefore resolved. Do you want to read the, do you have it with you? Pull it up and just read the resolve clause. The last resolved is eliminated. The be it further resolved is
Yep.
eliminated.
Okay.
And this also occurs in the second one.
Okay.
And
I'll read it.
read the resolve,
This is resolved that the town council authorized Supervisor Gary Zuckerman or his representative to promulgate and publicize an RFP seeking responsible bidders to provide as-needed tree pruning services via a standing contract to the town of Brooklyn.
correct. That's the change.
Okay, very good.
All right. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second it.
Please call the roll.
Now, is this as amended?
Yes.
Well, actually not, because it was sent.
He read it in.
Right.
Okay, Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
Councilperson Villanova,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. And the L resolution for landscaping services.
So moved.
Is this going to be amended also?
Yes, the same, exact same way.
Okay.
We have a motion, a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
Councilperson Villanova, and
Yes.
Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. And the last one is the Summer Job Readiness and Internship Program. Deb, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Certainly. This is very close to my heart. Our summer job readiness program has now been going on for several years. It gives us a chance to provide training to the young people of the town of Rye and direct interaction with employers on how to be a working person and what is expected, how to do that, how to write a resume, how to participate in an interview, and then actually enables us to put those kids to work. And there are several departments at the town that take an intern, but there are also businesses throughout the town that accept interns as well. We have to underwrite the cost of their wages. We split it 50-50 with the businesses. So that's the program.
How many did we have in the town last year? I remember we had 3 or 4.
I don't remember the exact number, but if it was somewhere between 20 and seems about right to me.
I mean, 3 or 4 worked in the town itself.
Oh, yes, oh, that's right. I think 4.
The budget of $13,000, is that, are there any project coordinators that are come out of this budget?
Yes.
Can you please, because you know that this is a concern of mine, it was a concern last year too. If you could just send me a list of what we're looking at as far as these project coordinators, how much they're being compensated.
Absolutely.
And I think last year I asked if these project coordinators would volunteer their time rather than getting paid.
We, the way the program is structured at this point, the project coordinators would not volunteer their time. However, the Village of Portchester is picking up some of the cost of the coordinators.
Right.
And do we appoint those coordinators? Or do they just
Interesting.
roll over? Are they year after year? Are they in other words,
Well,
does the
certainly in
council
my mind,
appoint-
they're not grandfathered in. Every year they,
So are they yearly appointments by the council?
I'm thinking we should try to put something in the paper to maybe make these coordinators competitive, maybe attract some new blood to these positions. I've had this, I don't want to keep talking about the same thing, But, you know, I
This is nothing new with you. You have raised this issue before.
I have.
Yeah.
And if we're going to, if we're to go down this path again, I mean, I think volunteerism in America, I mean, this was back when Bill Clinton was president, and I remember it was a national initiative about people volunteering. You know, would the people, and we just gave us the answer, would the people that are supposedly giving their time to the community give it if they weren't getting paid? And the answer is no. So maybe we can try to identify some people that would either work at a lesser cost, maybe just to offset some of their time, but maybe attract new people, or maybe find people that'll volunteer their time. So that's just my opinion. I'm sorry to cut you
No,
off, Tony.
I think you're right. And I do think it makes sense for them to be appointed at some point before the program begins, if they're,
Yeah.
you know, working for the town.
I agree with you. All right, but we will go forward with the resolution?
Yes,
Okay. A motion and a second, please.
so moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
Councilperson Baxter,
Yes.
Councilperson Villanova,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. At this point, well, let's do the reports first. I believe the Superintendent of Highways has once again submitted his report. And as usual, our clerk is here. Anything to add to your report, Hope? No. Okay. Mr. Receiver of Taxes, do you have anything to add to your report, sir? Thank you, sir. Dave, Finance report?
I just wanted to mention to the board that the auditors are in process field work, so they're in-house this week, and they'll probably be there maybe a few days next week. So we should be finishing with the audit probably by the March meeting. So we're in good shape financially, and we're in good shape for the audit. So hopefully have very little management comments, but
I did send an email about that, didn't I, David?
yes, you did.
What did that email say?
There better not be any management comments.
That's exactly right.
But they'll probably will, if they have no management comments, they'll probably say they don't like the coffee, so they always come up with something, but.
My
hopefully it's good.
concern is that the management comments of past years have been addressed, and that any management comments be totally new and fresh.
Yeah.
Well, we're not trying to create new management.
No,
comments either,
we expect a clean audit, though.
Yeah, so we're in good shape, and I just wanted to mention they are in-house, so they'll be asking department heads for different information along the way, and along with the financial team, so.
All right. Now, let me just raise one other thing. In the in-rem receivables, I know that certain people have asked us about it. As far as I can tell right now, there are a total of 4 properties that are subject to being taken in rem, and of those 4 properties, 2 of them are in bankruptcy, so that we cannot take title to them. So there are really only 2 properties at issue at the present time that have not paid their taxes. Is that correct, Nick? That is correct. Okay, thank you. So that's good news for our taxpayers, but we're not going to have a substantial bump as we did last year in rem.
That's the downside, right.
In rem sales. I guess, Denise, we'll get to you because I want to get to that issue that we discussed in a minute. But Crawford Park, we passed 2 resolutions tonight, and I just wanted to bring up very, very quickly the fact that, and thank you, David, that next month, we expect to have a presentation on the entire Crawford Park handicap and non-handicap accessibility work that's being done, call it the Crawford Park Project. The pavilion, as you've seen, the contract has been awarded. We actually expect the pavilion work to be done on or about June 1. The playground, we're also hoping to be done in the spring. At the next meeting, I hope that we can issue a, that the construction documents will be completed and sent out for the sensory garden. We had to wait on the sensory garden until we finalized the footprint of the playground. And most importantly, the hazmat inspection has been completed for the mansion. For those of you watching at home, on our website is our architects, our Conex Architecture draft of, it's actually not a draft anymore, it's the code and handicap accessibility report. Our code violations, our lack of handicap accessibility, et cetera, and what needs to be done, and that will form the basis for the scope of work that we are planning, and hopefully, possibly by the March meeting, we'll have a scope of work determined for the mansion, and then it will go out to bid. We expect all of the work except for the mansion to be completed well before the end of the year, which is our deadline for getting our community development block grant money of approximately $400,000. And we expect the mansion to be done hopefully by the middle of the following year, possibly earlier. That's on Crawford. There are two issues. One, Denise, would you and Jeff please talk about the potential, without naming any particulars. Jeff, you didn't send out that draft yet, correct?
You have it.
Oh, I had it, okay. The condominium problem, and then Jeff, I'm going to ask you to set forth what we propose to do. First, the problem.
Okay?
Want me to do it?
Rocks, papers. I don't care.
I can summarize it, and which sort of gets into the legislation. So the problem that we have is the potential for properties that are presently considered residential to residential homestead properties to seek to convert themselves to non-homestead properties, basically convert themselves to condominiums. And the problem there is the tax rates are much lower. And as a result, the town will suffer a diminution in receivables.
Actually, that's not exactly true.
Yeah, I was going to say,
No, it's not a diminution in receivables. The tax burden will shift
yeah.
to the homeowner.
The actual property will be assessed at a different rate.
That is correct. The other homeowners will have to pick up the slack.
Right.
So basically, we are proposing that we enact a local law to stop this from happening.
And the local law, according to my research at the moment, is entitled "A Local Law to Prevent Lower Assessments of Converted Condominiums Pursuant to a particular section of the Real Property Tax Law," that allows towns to enact this particular provision.
Oh, is this, are we doing this resolution? We are, you have to, we have to notice this, local law 30
Yes.
days in advance, right?
Yes, we will put it on, unless there's objection, we will put it on for the March meeting.
Yeah, deadline is May 1st, taxable status date, so that as long as you do it before then.
Yeah, we'll have to call for a public hearing at that time, Jeffrey.
Right. This needs to be public noticed that we're contemplating this local
Yeah.
law.
All right.
We'll take care
And
of it.
that has to be done by, resolution.
And this local law would cover all properties considering this change. In other words, if a property was intending to do this, this wouldn't just cover the one property that I think
No.
you would.
No.
I mean,
All
think
property.
about, think
This
about
would be
new
a town.
apartment,
This would be a townwide?
think about new apartment buildings
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay,
converting. That would
okay,
be a major.
makes sense.
All right? Yes, I was just going to get that. I had sent out a memo to change the March meeting. I'd like to have a motion and a second to change the meeting to March the 23rd,
7:30?
7 o'clock.
7
Because-
o'clock. 7 o'clock.
Because what we'll do is, we're going to erect the construction sign at 7 o'clock, and then we'll have the meeting immediately thereafter at 7:30. So we'll notice it for, so we'll figure out how to do the notice, but, yes,
At Crawford.
at Crawford Park.
If it's at 7 o'clock, I'll be late, because I have a class that night.
Okay.
I'll be here by 7:30, the latest.
Yeah, you'll just miss the sign
Yeah,
erection.
That's
If you
all.
get there, and the picture.
yeah, well,
We'll have a cutout of you, Tom.
That's right.
that's all right.
All right.
Photoshop. So moved.
Photoshop, that's it.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this gives us time, because we want to be at Crawford Mansion when we do the presentation, and also the Rye Town Park Commission meeting will not be on that night.
Very
So
good.
that we'll have the evening to ourselves, as we did tonight.
Jeff, do we need a resolution for the public hearing?
No, we'll do that in, we have to have the law out there. No, we have to have the law publicized in order to call for a public hearing. So we need, at the March 23rd meeting, we will call for a public hearing on that law, which will be published for the April meeting, and we will, unless there's a problem, we will pass it, we will enact it at the April
Yeah.
meeting.
You'd have to do it that.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Very good, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We are going to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. And we will not be coming back out because there will be no resolution thereafter. So may I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Gary,
We've got one
Gary,
question.
1 second.
Yes.
I didn't have an opportunity to give my assessor report. I
I
know I
thought
had,
that was it.
no, I had all those resolutions, but it'll be brief.
Okay.
Basically, I just wanted to let everybody know that Charlie Zaba, our real property appraiser, has resigned. He's accepted a position as the assessor for the town of Haverstraw, across the river, very close to where he lives. I wish him well. He's going
We all
to
do.
be great. And that's going to leave a big hole in our staff, especially temporarily in this critical time. So we'll be putting out a job posting.
I know that you and Debbie have already
Yeah,
discussed
I
this.
just wanted to publicly, thank him for his years of hard work and wish him well. And the other piece is that all of the exemption renewals for the seniors are out. We asked them to respond as quickly as possible and not wait till the May 1st deadline. And basically, that's it. And everybody have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, motion for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. What do we?